Well, hello there. We're
Hi,
back.
everybody.
It's
Charlie and Linda
Bloomtalks.
are here with you.
That's right. So let's see. What is today about? Yeah. We're going to talk about a couple of different models for relationship. And when we think of different perspectives or different views that people have, we generally think in terms of political views, personal beliefs, racial differences, ethnic differences that people might bring. But there are differences in ways that we often don't recognize that are in some ways more significant in terms of influencing our relationships than we're even aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call the two different views that we're going to be talking about today are, we call them models, and one is what we refer to as the maintenance model. And the maintenance model is one in which there's an intention to maintain a certain set of qualities or practices in the relationship. So there's an intention there to continually reinforce, reaffirm, repeat the values, the beliefs, the ideas that we've internalized as what we think a relationship should be and how it should be. And then the other model that we're going to be talking about, we refer to as the growth model or the transformation model, where there's not as much of an intention to maintain something as there is to nurture the relationship, to grow the relationship, to deepen it, to expand it. And although that might sound like a pretty good idea to a lot of people, to most people, when it comes to making the choice, very often, even though people might believe that it's a good idea to have a growth model, many people opt for the more conservative one, where we want to conserve the values and the attitudes and beliefs that we've brought into the relationship. Some relationships are what we call mixed marriages. Mixed marriages used to refer to people of different faiths, different religions, different ethnic backgrounds, races, coming together and having to deal with those differences. But this really has to do with a mixture of one person favoring a growth model and then the other person not so excited about that. And so how do we deal with that? And is that something that you've given any thought to, as far as what do you feel most identified with, which model? So we're going to talk a little bit about that and the distinctions and how to manage some of these differences.
Mm-hmm. So I've pondered and reflected on why so few people go after the transformation and growth model of relationship, because it's a small statistical group that's about that. Mm-hmm. And everybody who knows us knows we're all about that. And I hate waste. And I think that it's such a lost opportunity that people don't hold their relationships not nearly enough with the whole notion that it's for our evolution. It's for us to grow into the maximum of who we can become. And when I sat and I really thought about it and I reflected on it and I pondered on it, and when I was not as tremendously devoted to it, what was going on with me, what I realized was that a lot of us, and I include myself in this group in the past, were wounded from educational experiences that left us feeling embarrassed and awkward and sometimes downright humiliated. And some of that happened in school, some of it happened in Sunday school, some of it happened in our families, some of it happened with our peers. But when we were exposed for being ignorant about something, that we felt stupid and we felt so bad that we just wanted to hang on to the image of knowing and not admitting we were confused. It was too vulnerable, and it blocks us from really taking the kind of risks and going after the learning opportunities that come up every day, that come up in our relationship with each other if we have an attitude of, well, how can I learn and grow from this that's happening right now, both in my appreciation and gratitude for my life, and especially the difficulties, the breakdowns, the misunderstandings, the broken agreements, the conflicts. That's all growth waiting to happen. And so we would first have to be willing to tell the truth that we're uncomfortable learning new things, and the parts of us that are the warring factions about the part of us that really wants to go for the gold, really wants to have the best relationship that we can, really wants to grow into who we can be, versus the part of this that's reticent to do it because we know there's going to be some uncomfortable moments. And really let that inner dialogue hopefully unfold to the point where we get intentional. Yes, I'm committed to the growth path. Yes, there are going to be some unpleasant moments, and I am going to feel embarrassed, and I am going to fall down, and I can get up. I'm resilient enough. I'm strong enough, and I will continue to learn. And when we have that kind of intention, it makes it so much easier. Then the opportunities for learning show up all over the place. They show up just in interactions that we're having, daily interactions with people. They show up with hearing in a different way about books that would be useful to us, blogs that would be useful to us, YouTube videos that would be useful to us, and people in our life who may know more about this relationship game that we can, not necessarily even professionals, who will have something useful to offer to us. So that's what I'm trying to stimulate, that seeker and grower in you that wants to cultivate what the Buddhists call beginner's mind, which is the child's mind, the openness mind, the mind that has curiosity and wonder and actually enjoys the process of learning.
Well, like you mentioned, Linda, a lot of us have had not so wonderful experiences that we associate with learning.
Mm-hmm. We need some corrective experiences.
Well, you could say that, but in order to even have them, I think there's got to be an attitude shift
mm-hmm.
in the association that we have with the whole concept. So think for a moment, if you happen to be one of those people, and I certainly have been one of those people, who didn't actually have a wonderfully pleasurable, exciting, stimulating, positive experience going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about public school.
The majority of people.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I know that school wasn't something that I looked forward to. I know that my favorite day of the year was the first day of summer vacation or the last day of school. I mean, that was like, I was counting the days.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it when we had a snow day off.
Mm-hmm. You be a freedom-loving guy.
I was Friday. Friday seemed to go on forever until finally 3:00 came. So I did not enjoy that process. And despite the fact that I didn't enjoy it, I did go to college, but not because
and grad school.
But I still didn't have a very positive attitude of it. I was like, well, now I got to do this, now I have to subject myself to,
Have to.
post public school education. And that's why, eventually I couldn't do it anymore. So I quit. But then eventually I went back, and I went back, and had a very different experience. And
freely
so,
chosen.
Yeah. And that's the question that I really want to offer to people who are viewing this right now.
Right.
Is what is your association with learning, with education? When you hear those words, do you get a positive feeling of anticipation or engagement? Is that, oh, wow, I wonder what that's an interesting possibility. Maybe I could learn something here. That would be fun. That would be maybe life enhancing in some way. Or is it, oh shit, now, I've got to, what do I have to do now? What am I going to have to come up with here? What are the tests I'm going to have to pass? What's the work I'm going to have to do? So just become aware of what your association is with the concept of learning. Because for me, I had a transformational experience at some point. It wasn't when I was in high school. It was after that. But I did begin to associate learning with really a positive thing that I wanted to have more of in my life, because I began seeing and experiencing some of the benefits of it that I hadn't really noticed before. And also the quality of teaching that I was subject to, and that a lot of us are subject to in those systems. It's not because the teachers are bad, but just because of the regimentation of the whole process. It really doesn't provoke the kind of interaction, the kind of response that feeds and supports our curiosity.
So I want to speak to this point, and you're making a very good point, that you didn't like it having thrust upon you, because the requirements, the homework, and all of that.
Supports our curiosity.
So
I want
If-
to speak to this point. and
Shut
you're
the
making
volume
a
off.
good-
if we see this as an opportunity for us, this is not a have to, this is a get to, and that there's a bonanza of benefits coming to us in terms of knowing ourselves better, about knowing how relationships work better, about having more harmony with the people that we're in relationship with, having more cooperation, more co-creative process with them. It makes a huge difference in our whole orientation. Nobody's going to grade us. We're going to have a subjective assessment ourselves about whether this is beneficial and we want to do more of it. So it's not a trip that's being laid on anybody if they frame it as an
It's an
opportunity
opportunity.
and they see how much they stand to gain. For instance, in the maintenance model, people are all about protecting themselves, protecting their image, wanting to look good. And in the growth model, in the transformation model, it isn't about protection, it's about authenticity. So it's a shift in the value of wanting to live an authentic life. And when we come out of hiding and we can be more vulnerable and we can expose ourselves and we can reveal more, do you see? There's a little discomfort there. But then when people really like us, admire us, respect us, and say they love us, that we can let that in because we know they're seeing the real person here. So in the closed system, you don't have an opportunity to get feedback from your world and the important people in your world that really is nourishing deeply at the core like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's just one of many, many examples. I could give you another example. In the maintenance model, there is lot of games that are played, manipulative games like domination and submission, and who's going to have the power here, and who's going to win, and who's going to have their way. In the transformation model, it's not about domination and submission as much as it's shared power. So it's not about winning, it's about understanding. How can we both win? How can we both grow together by understanding each other?
Let's get to one of the points that we made at the beginning here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're in a mixed marriage.
Yes.
And you are convinced that there's some real value in having a relationship in which both people are committed to each other's growth and development, and are willing to risk some of the things and pay some of the prices, because there are prices and there are risks involved in opening your mind up and opening your life up to new possibilities.
That's right.
And that's something that you want. And what if your partner is like, whoa, that's not, I don't need that. I'm not motivated for that. I don't want that. That's your thing. You can have that. Mm-hmm. You can do that, but that's not for me. Well, in a marriage, that option really isn't there, because what you're committing to is something that involves another person. And if you're not both on the same page, you can't create a transformation model for your relationship.
But you can hold your standard for yourself, raise the bar, and you can do your own work. And for instance, if they're posturing and they're wanting to keep their image, but you want to be more authentic, then you live your authentic life. Hopefully at some point, it might be contagious. It might influence the other person. If you're committed to not playing the domination and submission game, and you want to share power, you do everything you can to share power with the other person.
But at some point, doesn't that get old if you're always the one who's taking responsibility for that and the other person just has no interest in doing it?
And if you're being authentic, you will report out about how tiring and how exhausting and how frustrating that is, because you will be living the truth of your own experience and not lowering your standards to try to fit with the other person. And so
how does
you hold the standard up?
How does my communicating my disapproval or dissatisfaction or disappointment to my partner?
Yeah.
How does that help me if I'm still not experiencing the reciprocity that I'm looking for?
I would say that you continue to do your own work to the best of your ability. You will appeal to their enlightened self-interest, that you speak to them as if this is a very real possibility for them, which it is, and attempt to have them see.
You try to sell them on the idea, you mean?
You live it and you breathe it, and you are it. And they may see that you're enjoying your life more.
So,
you're feeling more real. You're feeling more authentic.
What is the it that you're living and breathing?
That you are living a richer life. That you are living a more authentic life. That you are not living with as much fear of what other people might think of you, what your partner might think of you, what your family might think of you, what your friends might think of you. You're more self-referential. You're living out of your own values. You know who you are. You know where you're going. You know where your life goals are. And you're living out of that. And there's such a beauty in that it's pretty hard to miss.
There's a beauty in it, but there's also a risk in it.
Of course.
Because if you happen to be in a relationship with somebody who does not have any interest in that, regardless of what you might be experiencing yourself.
See, I want to just say that I don't think there are people who don't have any interest in it. Mm-hmm. I think there are people who sense that there could be something there in the growth model. They may be unfamiliar with it. They weren't exposed to anything like that in their family of origin. They're a little worried about it or suspicious of it. And they may, because everybody wants to be happy, they may have a little seed, a little openness. And you see if you can appeal to that part that they're a bit open to join you.
So you've got to be open to the possibility that there is more openness for them than you think there is, rather than just writing them off and saying, well, they're just not interested in this, they're not open to this, there's no possibility.
Don't write them off.
You've got to be willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and to keep doing your own work.
Exactly.
Keep practicing and keep holding your own vision, keeping that in front of you and not making them wrong.
Don't make them wrong. Don't make them wrong. You have patience and persistence. Not only do you not write them off, but you don't lower your standards to try to contort yourself and fit in to something that isn't as rich a life as you could be living. Mm-hmm. If you were more expressive, if you were more vulnerable, if you were more self-revelatory, if you were going for the gold. The people who really resonate to this, they can see my life is going to be richer and more full. I'm going to feel better about myself. I'm not going to be caught in codependent patterns. My self-esteem is going to go up. I'm going to get better about my boundaries. I'm going to know more of who I am.
That's nice. I think most people would really like that. But what's, like the joke goes, what's the catch? What are the prices? What are the costs? What's it going to cost me to have all those wonderful benefits?
You're going to feel like a doofus sometimes. Because when we do things that we're not familiar with and we're venturing out into unknown territory, we often feel inept, embarrassed, clumsy, confused, lost, and frustrated. And that's part of
other than that, you feel great.
It's part of the price of admission. If you're going to be out there on those skinny branches, you're going to be shaky and you might fall. And you might get hurt. And you probably will get hurt. And this is not for the faint of heart. It's only for the people who want to get out of the closed system, that don't accept, let me just make this point, who don't accept having a script put in their hand by anybody, not their religious organization, not their family of origin, not their partner, that they design their own script for their life. And hopefully it's going to be a compelling vision that they've put out there, so they invite their partner to come and join them.
So you think that one of the main things that keeps people from opting for this choice, to make this choice, is the fear that they may have about what this could require of them, fear that they may not be up to it, fear that they may have to experience some distress or discomfort, pain or embarrassment, whatever, all those things.
And they're right.
You were talking
Their
about.
fears are not irrational fears. There's some legitimacy to the fears.
So you have to build up your ability to tolerate frustration and pain and certain amount of suffering, which is in the process of learning.
You can only do it a little at a time.
Yeah.
You can't just bust out and create a whole different life for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want anybody in the listening audience to believe that it's not possible. Because sometimes people have all of these rationalizations and justifications for not going for the growth model of relationship because they have limiting beliefs. That's only for the lucky few. I have a screwed up family background, so it's not possible for me. And the other big one is my partner's not interested, so, too bad. And they give up. And so I'm challenging people to see it as possible for us ordinary people to have extraordinary relationships. And it's the work of a lifetime. We work on it for years, decades. But what do we have better to do with our time? The benefits are so great. And those fears that you're talking about, those are the same fears that they eat away at the love and the relationship that is possible to have. They erode the love and the substrate, because if you're going for the comfort and security, predictability model, it gets stale and boring over time. The juice drains out of the relationship. I'm more afraid of that.
Well, yeah, I was
the
going to say.
embarrassment.
I was going to say. So that is potentially more harmful or damaging possibility than the possibility of having to encounter some of the things that change inevitably will confront you with.
That's right.
So that, you want to be scared of something, be scared of ending up in a dead marriage.
And the research is very clear about this. And it's a common misconception that when couples break up, there's some big catastrophic thing that happens, like an affair or misconduct with money or something. That's not what most people are breaking up about. They're drifting apart over time. That's scary. They're not really making their relationship a high priority and nourishing it. They're not finding ways to really enjoy each other, to try new things, to have different conversations than the ones that they've been having. They're not out there, with the spirit of adventure and the curiosity and wonder that the really happy old couples, decades into it, they're never bored with each other. I'm never bored with you. I'm never bored with you.
I'm never bored with me either. No.
Because we've been the seekers and the growers for decades now, so we have a
but,
leg to stand on to speak of this.
We have this standing joke that we've been married 5 times, and each time to the same person.
Yeah.
Because our lives have evolved together. We were young when we got together.
Right.
And we were pretty unconscious, and we've gone through a lot of changes. And
I'm grateful to you for prompting me to risk.
Well, yeah, and
I had a big vision, but I was a scaredy cat.
Well, the thing that I realized, and I want to say this because I know we need to finish up soon, but I just realized that we have each prodded and provoked each other to step, to take that next step, whatever that might be. And inspired. And it hasn't been like one of us has been the one on the growth path and the other one hasn't been. We take turns being in the lead in that, which is great, because we're really partners in that, and we make plenty of mistakes, and we get the opportunity to see what it feels like on both sides,
and that's a good deal.
Yeah, so it is a good deal.
Okay, so we hope that we've inspired you to consider, if you have a maintenance model relationship and here are the characteristics on one side of the screen, that it's all about protection and comfort and security, and you want to transform your relationship and your life, then look to the other column and see if you can go for the gold. Identify which of the ones are your work to do, because there's plenty of work to do to have the best relationship that you possibly can. All right? So we're very happy to be available to prompt you towards the growth model of relationship. If you want to come and do class with us, we're teaching a weekend workshop at Esalen Institute in March, and there may be a couple of spaces left in there. We're going to teach in Multiversity. Esalen's March, Multiversity is April, the weekend after Easter, and there's lots of room in that workshop.
The 26th.
And we would love to see you come and join us in our workshops. We get a lot done towards the transformation model in just a few days. I also want to invite you to tell your friends on Facebook to follow us, to come take a look in the archives of the presentations we've done. You can pick by topic. If you have friends that don't play on Facebook, we can tell them to take a look at us on YouTube. And I also want to just invite anybody who hasn't gotten on our mailing list to get on it. You get 3 free ebooks that are crammed with value about how to make it solidly grounded in the transformation model of relationship. All the work that we do is to goose people along their path towards transformation model of relationship for maximum love and maximum well-being. All right, we'll see you next week. The topic for next week is, if you're thinking about marriage counseling, well, think about it. It's a lot to be gained. All right? All the best.
See you then.